I don't usually have bankers on the podcast.
BFSI suffers from a perception issue that BFSI is equal to numbers, equal to boring.
Yeah.
When you look at tier 2, tier 3, I think one big change that you see is that they are beaming with ideas. And the kind of solutions or the kind of problems that they're willing to solve are real issues that India is facing. If you look at any entrepreneur, they need funding, they need mentorship, and they need networking where they are able to, either collaborate or sell. And India does not have all three integrated.
I think that's where BizLabs as a program sort of fits in. It is taking it across India, taking it to places which otherwise would not have had this opportunity. I mean, we are taking an IIM Ahmedabad to an Indore, to a Jaipur, to a small city and bringing that resources to that area. There is a program. We are bringing in best incubators in the country to sort of support you, and there is a system sort of backing it. So apply. There is season 2 which is already opened up. Application is on. Please utilize it.
I really want to see the day where every entrepreneur finds a system which is willing to really accept the belief that the entrepreneur has and be less judgmental about what problem or what opportunity the entrepreneur is seeing.
So we supported about 32 companies with funding last year. This year we'll do about 75. Let's say we do about 100 every year. So these 400-500 companies, if all of them can be sustainable, and by sustainable I mean you either have funding coming in which allows you to sort of continue scaling up, or you have a business which generates enough capital for you to sustain it, right? So you're sustainable, you're creating jobs, you're contributing to the economy. I think that's the dream scenario. Yeah. If we can have large number of these, even if we don't have any unicorns, that's fine. But if we can have a large number of these, that serves a purpose.
Welcome to Humans of Bombay, Kedar and Himanshu. It's a unique one for me also. I don't usually have bankers on the podcast. So I'm also equally excited to be chatting with you guys. But there's clearly a love for startups, for storytelling. But what is it that you think has truly pulled you here, right, to have this conversation?
See, I think any startup, before it kind of gets into a completely full-blown business, it starts with a strong conviction story, which is within the co-founder or one person. And that story, if nurtured well, and if gets the right environment, really blooms to be a nice story that the world wants to hear. Kotak BizLabs is essentially that partner who wants to create these stories with the founders and not just come in and fund and go.
Yeah.
And that's really why we are here. We want to create those stories and also take those stories and let the ones who are creating those stories use the platform to kind of take it to everyone who's on that journey too.
Yeah, it's basically walking the talk, but we'll go deeper into that. What about you? What is it that truly drives you? When you speak about everything that we're going to be discussing.
Sure. So I think BizLabs is a very interesting CSR initiative. I head the CSR, and it's a very different take on how one is looking at the social impact, right? If you look at India and and if you see the 2047 goal that the government has put out, and the economy will reach that stage only if you have a lot of startups participating. And these lot of startups have to come from all across India. They cannot be concentrated in the 3 or 4 metros in the country, right? I think that's where BizLabs as a program sort of fits in. It is taking it across India, taking it to places which otherwise would not have had this opportunity. And I think that's what excites me as well.
Okay, so before we proceed, let's just break down what BizLabs is. What was the thought process? You guys have touched upon it, but we'll go deeper. And how it's going that one step beyond. Because a lot of people speak about a lot of things, that this is what we stand for, this is what we set to do, but to actually put in money, to invest not only just actual money, but seeing that journey through is very commendable. So please let's break down what BizLabs is.
So if you look at any brand that is being built in the history, and no matter which sector where they are, no brand gets built unless you really go and do what you stand for. And there is a misnomer largely about just screaming louder and thinking that you are screaming on top of your voice and the most expensive GRPs, but it doesn't do anything except getting you immediate attention for a very short period. And we know this well, and that's what we've kind of tried to change in the way we build the brand or the new brand that we are trying to craft out for Kotak. There were two or three big shifts that we are all witnessing. I think one shift that we are all witnessing is that Indians have never been so confident and so audacious into what they wanted to do. If you look at the last 10 years, especially, there are more stories about people trying out what they believed in than trying to look out for a role in a particular company. That is very telling. If you go a little deeper there, why is that really happening? I think the generation now really feels more entitled in doing what really matters to them versus looking for security, which is what the previous generations kind of really strived for. And as you try and get that, you are not looking for anyone as gatekeepers. You don't want banks to be your gatekeepers and telling you whether you're eligible doing XYZ or not. They want partners and they want access. Because it's just the access that is missing, the role of the brand that we defined for ourselves was a brand that is willing to back your dreams. And which is what gave birth to Hausla Hai To Ho Jayega. Hausla Hai To Ho Jayega is the new belief system within Kotak, and we want consumers to also kind of see us as that. One proof of why of how we are doing this is BizLabs, and BizLabs is nothing but it's a program which brings three things together. If you look at any entrepreneur, they need funding, they need mentorship, and they need networking where they are able to either collaborate or sell. And India does not have all three integrated. That was the gap. I think that was well identified, and which is what BizLabs is.
Got it. So if we were to go deeper into all three, right? Like how do we actually get access to the above three, which is the funding, the networking, as well as the mentorship? How exactly does it work?
Sure. So the BizLabs Accelerator program, which we have started, we've in the season 1 we tied up with three of what we would consider as really respectable, reputable incubators. So that's IIM Bangalore's NSR cell, there's T-Hub in Hyderabad, and then IIM Ventures at IIM Ahmedabad. These three bring in a lot of expertise, and they have a track record of supporting companies for a long period of time. What we did was we sat with them to identify what was the gap in the overall ecosystem. So if you look at it, you have a lot of funding happening at the initial stages. So this is where ideas, people are being funded. So that's an incubation stage. Then you have funding coming in from HNIs and VCs, and there's a space in between. And that's where majority of the startups are actually failing, right? You are not able to bring the product to the market, and then once you've brought the product to the market, you're not able to scale it up so that the business becomes sustainable. The idea behind Accelerator program was that we will work with the founders on these three aspects, connect them to the right network, connect them to the mentors who understand the business, and channelize their energy in the right direction. So for example, in our season 1, we have had situations where a business is looking at a B2C as a market, but after a lot of discussion with the mentor, the founder realizes, hey, this is not what would make sense, and pivots to B2B, right? That's what comes from a very strong mentoring platform, and for that reason, we have tied up with three people who we believe have the best networks to do that. The grant funding is a small component of it. That comes from obviously the CSR funding that we do, and that goes in to the startups which are selected. And the networking, some part of it as Kotak we will bring in, and a lot of it will come from the incubator partners that we have. So all three are coming in, and I think I mentioned about tier 2, tier 3 cities. That's where some of this is lacking, right? I mean, we are taking an IIM Ahmedabad, to an Indore, to a Jaipur, to a small city, and bringing that resources to that area.
And when you expand into markets like you just spoke about, which is not your top 4 metro cities in India, you actually open up the pool to fresher ideas, to ideas that actually may not see the light of day. So how has that experience been? Because you've kind of you're the helm of the CSR initiatives. How has that experience been?
So when we started out, and if somebody told me that 50% of our cohort will come from non-metros, I would have been surprised. So we actually had more than 50% coming in from non-metros.
Wow.
And that was a surprise. And when we started doing these road shows, you have this typical thought process about, Bangalore will have tech, Delhi will have certain kind of business, Mumbai will have certain kind of business, and we landed up in Surat. And I meet a founder who has a deep tech company. I'm like, Surat of all places, I know about diamond, I know about textile. Where does deep tech come from in Surat, right?
Yeah.
And there are these pockets of excellence which are there, but they don't have the access, right? They don't have the network, they don't have the people who can take them to the next stage. And we are seeing a lot of it in the first edition of the Accelerator program. And I think in the second edition, I believe it will increase further. The number might go up from 50% that we had.
Yeah, absolutely. When you come up with a tagline like "hausla hai to ho jayega," it's a very, the word is jugaad, which is very rooted in India, right? Like one can do it, and you'll figure out your means to an end, kind of thing. You were also telling me offline that that's the reason why this this as part of Kotak does not have any ambassadors. You operate in a way where it's real life stories and real people that drives this conversation. So what is it that this message really means at the Kotak level?
So, like I said, I think hausla to ho jayega is a belief system. It's not a campaign. The way we've kind of really redefined ourselves is to really back every emboldened, audacious dream that is there. And in doing so, we will go and build products, services that really help achieve your dreams. And when you kind of reimagine your role or reimagine your brand's role in the consumer's life, it starts seeing changes across the spectrum.
Yeah.
Whether the way you communicate, the way you build your products, the way you get your regional marketing teams, or let's say the RM relationship managers speak to your consumers, so on and so forth. It's a complete overhaul. And there, when you want to be seen helping a consumer, imagine a celebrity coming and saying, okay, here's where we want to help you.
Yeah.
Versus being truly authentic and letting the real stories come through. If you want to be authentic, firstly the change starts within, where you don't see yourself as the having the magic wand of changing everything in consumer's life. You know that you're the backstage enabler. So you're not the hero in the story that you want to tell to the consumers.
Yeah.
The story has to be of the consumer herself, and the brand has to be taking a back seat.
Yeah.
And as you let those stories, it's the real consumer stories, and which is where the shift was. So if you look at our first campaign, which was hausla to ho jayega in Jan this year, it's all real stories.
Yeah.
We've got a farmer who actually went in the deserts and was able to revamp entire desert into a farm. We found another Kotak consumer who actually is into building robotic arms for all the disabled, and they do it with the real intent of just creating impact. And we've also found someone who was completely redefining fashion for 60 plus. Now look at those stories, right? No amount of ambassador could ever do justice to it, and I'm sure no one would believe us. And that's the shift. So authenticity is the new currency. Amplification isn't. And we are just trying to be authentic by bringing those stories come to life. And whether it's BizLabs, whether it is Hausla Talks, or whether it is multiple IPs that you'll see come through, they are all about real people.
That's so good to hear. That's really good to hear. But where, as leaders, right, where does one draw the line between CSR and marketing? Because the two, there's a very fine line between the two. And what's amazing about this is that it's actually like we discussed earlier, putting your money where your mouth is.
Yeah.
But you obviously, we are talking about it, right? So
Yeah.
how do you kind of segregate the two functions?
So it's actually, even in this talk, you would have seen the two segregation that's there.
Yeah.
It's very, very clear. The accelerator program and whatever is required for companies to do well in terms of providing them with network support, providing them with access, providing them with capital, happens through the CSR function, right? Where it comes to amplifying that, communicating the story, that's where I think the marketing sort of steps in, and it is synergistic in a sense. I think what we are doing here will bring in more and more relevant people to the accelerator program.
Both come from the same point, and that common point is really belief, which is stemming from a strong purpose. And the beauty happens when the brand communication, brand role, and CSR try and converge and do the same thing.
Yeah.
Which is exactly what you're seeing happen in case of Kotak, where the brand is talking about really backing the audacious dreams of the emboldened Indian. Here comes a CSR initiative, which exactly does that, which brings the entire ecosystem, the most difficult thing to do. You've got mentors coming in from a world of the puristic institutes. You go to IIMs, you go to IIB, all of those institutions. Then you go to the funders, like saying that, okay, here is where we would be able to put our funds. And then you're using your own network. So it converges because they are doing what they should be doing, which is serving the consumer. And they're converging in belief, which is again coming from single purpose.
Yeah.
As they are divergent is a sign enough to know that either one of the two is not really doing is a facade.
Yeah. So, and it's also interesting because for a BFSI company to be so heavily invested in human emotions, to bring out those narratives, to bring out those authentic stories, right? How do you maintain that balance? Because Kotak as a brand is known for trust, for stability, and now you introduce human emotions into it. How does that play out?
See, I think there is a BFSI suffers from a perception issue. That BFSI is equal to numbers, equal to boring.
Yeah.
So to me, and that's also a fascinating problem to solve.
Yeah.
If you see, the most emotional relationship that you have is with your money. And finance at its best does the most emotional thing to you. If you go bankrupt, if you make money, or if you gift money, think of all these places, right? Like when you buy a new house, when you buy a new car, let alone car, big house, it's a phone that you buy. You're emotional about that money. It's just that for far too long, one has just indexed the communication towards the transactional piece of it.
Yeah.
Now the world is waking up to realizing that it's the human connection, it's the emotional connection that builds for more lasting relationships. And I'm glad that Kotak is far ahead in terms of not just the realization but the acting part as well. So which is where we are moving. How do you keep it authentic? Like I said, I think you have to realize that you are building a brand doesn't mean that you have to put your brand first. You don't want your logo to be beamed.
Yeah.
You don't want how many number of times the logo is beamed equal to brand building. You just have to take a step back.
Yeah, we work with a lot of clients, right? So we always say, like, just sometimes just trust, like leave the logo out, like let's just do it a particular way, because it's for the benefit of everybody involved. Because when you highlight it so much, it's like push marketing that people actually don't appreciate in today's world. I'm sure you've experienced that.
Absolutely. I think if you scream louder doesn't mean that your consumer is going to listen to you.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to be silent and then they get the point. And as they do is when they realize what the brand is trying to do for them, and that's a magical moment that happens, and that's the start of a long relationship that the brand and the consumer has.
Yeah, it's that association, right? There's sometimes it's a very unsaid reason. Why do I purchase from this particular brand when
yeah.
I could purchase from another brand that may even be better, but you just have that emotional connect for XYZ reason. So I guess we're all trying to build that. We're now going to call on somebody who's part of the incubator program. Shubham, who's the founder of Arc Robotics and who's super impressive. I'm very excited to chat. Welcome, Shubham, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for inviting me here.
आप हमें आर्क रोबोटिक्स के बारे में सबसे पहले कुछ बताइए.
सो आर्क रोबोटिक एक स्टार्टअप है जो हमने स्टार्ट किया था इन अ विजन टू इरेडिकेट ह्यूमन इंटरवेंशन इन कन्फाइंड स्पेसेस. और ये हमने स्टार्ट किया था, इसमें एक पर्सनल इशू मेरा ये था, लाइक आई एम अ काइंड ऑफ पर्सन हु इज़ हैविंग अ बिट ऑफ क्लॉस्ट्रोफोबिया, लाइक आई फील एंजाइटी इन स्मॉल स्पेसेस. और हमने जब देखा इन लोगों को सीवर चेम्बर में, हमारे ही लोग सीवर चेम्बर में जा रहे हैं, दे आर डूइंग दिस काइंड ऑफ वर्क बाय देयर ओन हैंड्स, and even going inside the sewer chamber when the sewer chamber is overflowing. So it really hit me, and I had a word with my brother, and then we realized that we do something for this. Previously we were thinking to start something in the robotics and electronics. Then we realized that we should do something in this first, then we will do other works. So इसी के साथ ये स्टार्टअप चालू हुआ एक विजन के साथ कि हम कुछ ऐसा बनाएंगे जिससे हमारे जो सैनिटेशन वर्कर्स हैं उन्हें इन कन्फाइंड स्पेसेस में नहीं जाना पड़ेगा. और इसी के साथ में बहुत सारी जो अलग कन्फाइंड स्पेसेस होती हैं, इंडस्ट्रियल कन्फाइंड स्पेसेस, वहाँ पे भी कहीं इस तरीके की प्रॉब्लम आती ताकि हम उसको भी सॉल्व कर सकें. सो दिस वाज द मेन रीजन टू स्टार्ट आर्क रोबोटिक्स.
Wow. So when you hear stories like this, right? Like how do you even react? Ki this is something so amazing, and in fact, you know, wo jo clips the, there were so many clips about sewage workers that you see and you're like, you can't see it, and this is their reality, and they have shortened lifespan. So here's somebody who's working on it. So how was your reaction when you first heard this story?
It solves dual purpose, right? The CSR is happening, a good business is getting created, jobs are happening, and I think society is benefiting. I think that's the perfect combination, at least from a CSR perspective.
How about you? How do you?
So I think it's very inspiring, right, to say the least. These kind of things just make you look so small, because when you look at the kind of problems that are being solved, at one end you want to go to the moon, you want to take AI, you want to go to Mars, and then there are real life issues like these, and just no one wants to pick them up.
Yeah.
Maybe they're not commercially viable, maybe you don't want to get associated with that kind of work, there's a certain amount of stigma attached to it, and there are people like Shubham and team who are just kind of going and solving, which is the most fundamental thing that one should look at. So I guess it's just it's definitely very, very inspiring. What was more inspiring was their entire journey has not been about valuation. The entire journey has been about creating value, and that is fundamentally so core to really creating an impact. And that's what stood out across. So their work spoke to us much before they did. And I'm glad our paths crossed, and I say this, it's a realization that purposeful capitalism is where we are moving. What we see in Arc Robotics is just one example. BizLabs is another, and there are many more to come.
So before BizLabs, right? आपके लिए क्या challenges रहे?
So before coming to BizLab, we were only a technical startup जो एक robotic arm बना रहा है एक problem को solve करने के लिए. But after coming to BizLab, we got connected with IMA Ventures. They provided mentoring, business guidance, and other kind of a workshop where we have refined our working model, business model, and learned lots of case studies from the world level companies. So उसके बाद में जो transition आया, now we are looking at the impact creating. पहले हम एक technology बना रहे थे जिसको हम implement करेंगे ना eventually on the ground, कुछ time बाद जो manual intervention है वो हट जाएगा, चला जाएगा. But now we can say that our main goal is to just eradicate the manual scavenging from the ground completely.
Wow. Or how far have you gotten?
Yeah, so we are working with a few municipal corporation, and our solution is validated from the ground, and now we are looking to other players as well to deploy a solution across pan India.
Wow. Okay. When stories like this, right, like we discussed, it's, you said it better than anybody. It's not just valuation; it's about value creation. How does this tie into everything that Kotak is doing? Because this is just fantastic work.
See, I think when you see it personally, this kind of reinforces the fact that you need to be working in areas which you strongly believe in. So that transcends across, not just with people associated with BizLabs at Kotak, but at an organization at large. It does kind of help everyone. Purely when you look at it from a Kotak standpoint, I think this is exactly the kind of India that we want to back. They have bold dreams, they are driven, they are looking at strong impact they could create, and all they are missing is just access.
Yeah.
They have everything. They have deep knowledge. They have gone and they're willing to build their life over it. The only piece is lack of access, and it would be a collective failure if we don't kind of create these systems for such entrepreneurs in India. As I said earlier as well, for us, the role of Kotak is to really back the audacious dreams that emboldened Indians have today. And in doing so, we want to create a lot more systems and a lot more ecosystems like BizLabs. And that's where I think the two kind of, work very well. There are a lot of synergies, and it just kind of works for both of us.
Absolutely. आपके लिए ये कैसे रहा है? When somebody really believes in you and gives you that support or the access, like Edar was saying, how does it feel?
Yeah, so we were part of other CISA program as well, but on that kind of program we already receive a kind of a money, not kind of a support and any kind of a networking. And when we see like these big players are giving their kind of a support and जो भी possible way में हो सकता है वो जो हमारे लिए कर रहे हैं, so it feels sense of responsibility that they are trusting the person. We have to actually create the solution and deploy the solution on the ground, and eventually we have to upskill the workers as well as we protect the life. So it feels like a responsibility for a startup owner that this kind of players are trusting our vision.
और प्रोग्राम में कुछ ऐसा मोमेंट रहा है या कुछ मेंटर ने कह दिया आपको that really changed the trajectory?
Yeah, so there was a moment in which one of the mentor for my IMA Ventures, he suggested me that, Shubham, why are you only deploying the solution in the sanitation? Why are you not looking for other channel as well for deployment as well as in the industry segment? So this was the point when we realized that our solution is not only for the sanitation or a public sector. We can deploy this solution in the industries as well, because वहाँ पे भी काफ़ी सारी fertilities हो रही है, काफ़ी लोग को बहुत सारी problems face करनी पड़ी है. So we can do this as well.
So ऐसी कोई special memory रही है प्रोग्राम में? बहुत सारे लोग कहते हैं this was the happiest moment मेरे लिए during this particular time.
Yeah, so during the program जो basically जो memories थी workshop की थी जहाँ पे हमें काफ़ी सारी चीज़ें सीखने को मिली. Especially moment was from अरुण श्री कुमार. There was a professor in IIM अहमदाबाद. उन्होंने मुझे ये बताया कि मेरा business कितनी जल्दी बंद हो सकता है और कितनी जल्दी grow कर सकता है. So he was focusing on कि how it can just fail as soon as possible. So उन्होंने सारे मुझे तरीके बताए कि ये अगर तू follow करेगा तो तेरा business इतने months में बंद हो जाएगा. So yeah, so realizing that what kind of a thing I had to eliminate from my vision.
हाँ, तो वो foresight मिल गया.
Foresight मिल गया. Yes.
Okay. Any word of advice that you have for people like Shubham who are doing amazing things and don't have the access or are watching this show and want to participate? What would you say?
Advice. I mean, these are people that I admire, so I will not want to give any advice for sure. I think the only message would be that there is a program. We are bringing in best incubators in the country to sort of support you. and there is a system sort of backing it. So apply. There is season 2 which is already opened up. Application is on. Please utilize it, and we need more and more Shubhams, sprawling across all over India and not just one particular city.
Yeah. We'll speak more about season 2, but we'll thank Shubham for joining us for this segment, and all the best. And I'm so fascinated, and I hope you really succeed and take it to the moon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. So Kotak BizLabs season 2 is live, and while season 1's foundation was so strong, what is the vision this time around, and how is it going to be different?
So I think bigger, bolder, brighter is not just in terms of scale, but more in spirit. And as you kind of decode all elements, bigger vision, bolder courage, and brighter optimism. So our intent is to kind of reach out even more than what we did. Season 1 has been very, very humbling, and it's something that we've got a lot of positive feedback. And you know it intuitively when you do something, and you get a lot of people who really feel that it's actually adding a lot of value to them. So that just has given us a lot of confidence in kind of taking the model kind of a lot more deeper in terms of more cities, in terms of I think Himanshu can add a little more color to that. But net for us, it's far deeper in the way we want to build those relationships with the consumers. And like I said, I think the whole system about nurturing the belief that a co-founder has, especially early on, because that's the time when you're most vulnerable. And if that belief dies too so early, then you've killed a big idea, and that's what we don't want to. Won't let that happen, and that's how we are looking at it as a bigger, bolder, and much brighter than what we did last time.
Yeah, and the foundations were set very, very right, right? Because like you said, when you just know when there's positive feedback that you're doing something right. But what will be different this year?
So when we started thinking about season 2, the first thing we did was call our 3 partners, because they are the ones who are implementing on the ground. They are the ones who are interacting with people like Shubham, right? And we had a round of a meeting. We actually dissected through the program, saying, okay, where did we do something well? Where did we not do that well? What were the gaps? So a few things came out. One was while we were working with 3 different incubators, they had their own ways of doing things, right? So there were elements in programs which were different, which are not consistent. So a company sitting in, let's say, Jaipur, working with Ahmedabad was getting a different experience from a company in Hyderabad working with T-Hub.
Absolutely.
So we've tried to sort of, harmonize it. You cannot make it 100% same, but it's similar. And that's where the shared vision of the 3 institutions came in. The other bit which we did was we realized that while we focused on a few states, we got a lot of application from outside as well. So we expanded to North, and we brought in a partner, FITT Delhi. Again, the feedback that came in from the incubators was that most of them were business incubators. It will be good if we can have a technology-based incubator, and that's how FITT Delhi came in very well. And it's the spirit of partnership that while we were selecting the 4th partner, we actually were taking feedback from the 3 incubators, saying, okay, who do you think you will be able to work well?
Correct.
And that's how we sort of created it. And now the idea is that these 3 + 1, 4 FITT, all of them are aligned that we need to take it to more cities. So if you see our road shows that are planned for season, some of which is already started, it's going into non-metros majority, right? You may have 1 or 2 because you're based there, but otherwise it's going into non-metros. A lot of the communication is going to smaller cities, and the idea is to bring in more and more participation.
Yeah. And what kind of startups are you looking to invite into this season?
Yeah, I think before we get there, right, I'll kind of tell a small anecdote on what Himanshu just spoke. It kind of triggered and reminded me of my days in Bihar. The road show was about why a particular oil is good for you. Cut to now, where there's a road show, which is actually talking about how you could bring your dream come true
Yeah.
and have your own business.
Yeah.
And this is happened in a spectrum of about 15 years.
Yeah.
So there's certainly lots happening, and those road shows are very, very. It changes. It touches a lot of people's life because you're going to them. You're bringing the whole ecosystem at their doorsteps. So you've got people coming in from IIMs. You've got all the investors there. You've got a bank going there and educating. That's a beautiful a system which is just brought to you. You could only imagine what it means when you are trying to now double down and go. It's a nightmare trying to get all the logistics in place, so on and so forth. But the impact it has, kind of really helps. So that's that to add to what
Going down the memory lane.
Oh yeah, I mean some of these conversations are great because seldom do you get time to reminisce whilst you're in midst of trying to create something big. So, and then thanks for this conversation.
Absolutely.
In terms of what we are open to, see, I think few fundamentals remain the same whether it's season 1, 2, and I'm sure we won't kind of move away from them. First is anyone who is trying to create real value impact and not valuation. So that's one. Second, anyone who's genuinely solving everyday problems and not the digital problems alone. And in terms of sector, it continues to be sustainability, impact, inclusivity. Those are the areas that continue to be our focus areas. If you see, they are non-commercial in nature. And because they are non-commercial in nature, there are very few who are willing to partner and put that effort. So, and that is real differentiator that I think this program has been able to bring in. And kudos to the way the CSR kind of really sees this so close and make sure that, okay, we don't deviate from what it's meant to be. So that's the kind of sectors, those are the kind of entrepreneurs that we are trying to take it to. But like I said, first principles remain the same from season 1. Just that's bigger.
So I think just to add, when Kedar mentioned non-commercial, I think the idea is these are not the sectors where you'll see a lot of money being poured in. Like if you take a D2C business, there'll be a lot of people even in a smaller city who will be ready to put in the money. These are solid ideas which have a commercial potential, but they don't attract the same level of capital that some of these sectors which have seen success have attracted.
Correct.
And I think that's where CSR comes in, right? I mean, if we were supporting a B2C business, which is anyways could have received money from some other sources, then that impact has gone. So we have chosen sectors which we believe have strong potential going forward, not the flavor of the season right now, right? But that doesn't mean that they don't have the potential to grow.
Absolutely. So how do you kind of encourage or make sure that founders from tier 2, tier 3s feel confident enough to apply also? What would you say to them?
So you've got people who are already there, right? I mean, a lot of our, as I said, 50% plus were from tier 2, tier 3 cities. And I think one is making sure that people are aware that something like this is available, right? And I think that's where road shows come into play. Communication to other incubators goes into play, and I think that's where our docu-series also would sort of help, right? Bring in the awareness. When you see somebody from an Indore or somebody from a Pune creating a business, it has a different impact than, let's say, a Delhi or a Bombay business doing it. So I think it's about communicating, about reaching out as many people as possible. So that I think we are doing that.
Yeah.
See, when you look at tier 2, tier 3, I think one big change that you see is that they are beaming with ideas. And the kind of solutions or the kind of problems that they're willing to solve are real issues that India is facing. As opposed to a lot of us who sit in an ivory tower surrounded by certain kind of narratives, we tend to pick areas which are of only certain nature. So there are a lot of ideas out there who really need access more than before, and our job is to really give that access. So I think that's the first thing that is there. The second thing is that it's also important that you make it relatable. When you kind of support one founder, you've kind of given hope to a community. And if that founder happens to be of your in your surrounding, then it becomes a path being carved out for you.
100%. Because you think that if he can, I can.
Correct.
Like it could be me.
Absolutely. So we were not waiting for startups to scale and then partner with them. We are going to them. So which is the whole thing, that the whole program is about reaching out, and you don't wait for innovation to scale and then say, okay, come, let's partner.
You catch it at that
much earlier. So that's the second piece. That's where our reach out program, and this time around, I think we're going 3x of what probably we did in season 1. The third thing is that normalizing the stories. When you go to an OTT platform, when you see a lot of sports stories, you feel, wow, this is normal. This is a profession that I pick up. Then you see only successful big stories, which are in many ways, you kind of get intimidated, as opposed to being motivated, or as opposed to feeling that, okay, I see myself in here. And we wanted to change that, which is why we very strategically chose going a docu-series way, where the brand doesn't speak. The co-founders tell their stories. Those stories are being shot in their native place and not in a made-up set. So you got the real people speak, and we just can't bring those emotions out.
And you can tell the difference, by the way. If it's like fully manicured on a set, people now so evolved, they immediately pick it up, right? Saying that this is probably not true.
The believability goes down, and when you are trying to normalize this for a nation which is yet to get there, we had to go on distribution channels which were massive and big, which is where MX Player, Prime Video, being there on YouTube kind of made a lot of sense for us. So we took a docu-series way. We shot the first docu-series. It's also the first in many ways, because brands haven't taken long format storytelling way of kind of engaging with consumers in the way this is being done. If you scan through all OTT platforms, you'll realize that most docu-series are about a founder and their story, as opposed to the impact that you've had on consumers and what's happening in their life.
Absolutely.
So that's the difference. And to us, increase the reach. That's what we've done. Give access, increase the reach out before they become too big, or be at the time when they're most vulnerable. And third, normalize the conversation. Make them the heroes. Put it on there. So it's all on regional channels. You'll see them everywhere. And that's what hausla is for us. It's about how do you really bring in the belief that you could achieve it, and that's how it's all connected.
So like you said, right, like we're still not there yet, but we're in the middle of a time where it's too ripe in the startup world, right? Like everybody is starting up, but looking forward, right, 5 years into the future, if you could change one thing about the Indian startup ecosystem, what would it be?
So I have a beautiful anecdote which really hit me. I was on a recruitment drive. This was in my previous organization at Amazon. We were doing some recruitment, and this was in one of the IIMs. And the typical thing was about clearing a written exam. And then once you've cleared a written exam, you'll do a group discussion. Once you've cleared that, then you come for a personal. Now, the candidate has made through all of it, and we sit across the table, and the candidate goes and he says, look, I don't want a job at Amazon. I'm not interviewing for a role. But you know what? There are 3 people in your organization, or there are 3 big functions in your organization. I'm trying to get in touch. I have a
Wow.
beautiful app that I made, and I really want to get in touch with them.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't find them. I just don't have a way to get in there. And the only way I could have done is to kind of
Come for
get
the
you.
yeah.
That really tells the spirit, right? That's what is changing in India. And this is he could have easily landed a job which was a dream job for many, but he's so focused and he is looking for access again. So I think that sums up the whole piece. From a point of view of larger message, I think we have to normalize failure. India is still not very open to failures.
Yeah.
We kind of take success is celebrated a lot,
Yeah.
but soon we forget that the staircase to success is failures.
100%.
And that's essentially what we want to do. We want to at through BizLabs, we want to create a strong belief system which allows you to kind of absorb the shocks of the early stage failures that you have, and
Which
you
are bound to
slowly
happen.
confidence.
Yeah.
Which will happen. I think it's about our edge is going to come from resilience, less through just disruptions that's going to happen. And there is time for that, but this is the stage where you have to be extremely resilient across quarters, whether it's the policies that are being put out, whether it's the way the fintechs, the banks play the role, and the way the kind of failures are picked up. So I think that's the way I see the coming times to kind of be shaped.
Yeah. How about you?
So 5 years down the line, a few things that I would like. More women founders, more startups coming from tier 2, tier 3 cities, and funders, the investors coming in from the local cities. Why should a tier 2 city company look for an investor in Mumbai or Bangalore? Why can't it be in tier 2 city itself? And there are people with lots of money. So as this becomes a normal thing in those locations, you will see actually that ecosystem developing, and that will spawn even more companies. So that's in 5 years, if we can achieve that, I think then the job is done.
Yeah. So as we come to a close, let's end with this, right? We've spoken about macro. Let's come to the granular. What if somebody is watching this podcast and is just afraid to take that first step, or like you said, afraid to fail because it's so tabooed and it always has been? What would you say to them?
I think two things. Whoever is trying to innovate, invent, and build something, firstly, be okay to be misunderstood for a very long time. And along the process, there'll be a lot of questions asked. People may not get what you're trying to do, but that's absolutely fine. Just have a strong belief into what you're trying to build. So it's okay to be misunderstood for a very, very long period of time. Second, see, fear is real. It's not about trying to do everything fearlessly. Hausla is really about being okay to moving forward with fear.
Yeah.
As opposed to waiting for a day where you feel, okay, now I'm ready and I'm going to just do it, right? That's not going to happen. So be okay with moving with fear. And yes, hausla to ho jayega.
So if you look at what government has created, there are almost 1,000+ incubators. Many of them are doing very well. I think to anyone who's looking at entrepreneurship, as a first step, you should look at what is available in your city. There will be entrepreneurs, there'll be incubators. I think the right step would be to go and have a conversation. Yesterday, I was in a road show where one guy stood up and actually told, there was somebody from IB Ventures. He said, I am doing this business because I had a 5-minute conversation with you.
Wow.
And that inspired me to do this. And the guy at the other end did not even remember this person. Right? So have that conversation. I think there are enough people to help out. And hopefully you will then one day become somebody that another person can go and reach out and get the same inspiration.
Yeah. And I think it just adds so much more gravity when somebody like or a brand like Kotak really backs this. Thank you so much, guys. It's been such a lovely conversation, and I think we can all end it by saying "Hausla hai to ho jayega." Thank you so much for the time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.